entering into and being willing to investigate this word of the year thing, man, has been very important in my journey.
Yeah.
So.
With God, there is always more. More love, more life, more freedom. Welcome to Zoweh's Exploring More with Michael Thompson. C.S. Lewis once wrote, "Our Heavenly Father has provided many delightful inns for us along our journey, but He takes great care to see that we do not mistake any of them for home." Join me and the team as we explore the kingdom together, discovering the deep truths and offering encouragement for the journey. There is always more.
Welcome, friends and allies, to the Exploring More podcast. Michael Thompson hanging out with the visored S.J. Jennings.
Yeah, to be completely transparent, I forgot we were recording today and wore a visor. And I'm not one of those guys that can go in the bathroom and just throw some water on my hair and it looks normal again.
Yeah.
It would look like I just rolled out of bed if I took my visor off.
It's very hurtful to hear.
Why is that?
That you forgot.
Oh.
That we were podcasting.
We have a few things going on, so it's been full.
Happy New Year, bro.
Yeah.
Way to start the year off with a bruising.
Yeah. Do you remember thinking, like, when you were younger, 2024, that's like, we're going to have flying cars. We're going to, we'll be on Mars by then, colonized. I mean, I remember being young going, that is so far in the future, I can't even imagine what 2024 looks like. And here we are.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, that, and the older I get, the less I try to think about it. It's one day, the less I'll even remember about it.
But it's the kindness, I guess.
There is, it is amazing. I saw, as you said that, I saw something, I don't know if it was Instagram or YouTube, one of those reels, but it was a older man looking in the mirror, probably close to 80, and it said something like, "I don't feel that way."
Right. Yeah.
That I still, like, there's somewhere in there you just finally, you feel like you feel in your 40s, or you feel a certain age.
Yeah.
Like, I don't feel, this is 2024, I'll be 60 this year.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, that's
a big one. You know what it makes me think of is Open Range, the movie Open Range, and they've got the dog with them.
Oh, yeah.
And the dog wants to go. Button, yeah, and it's like, she's got the heart, she just ain't got the legs. And I mean, I know that's about a dog, but I feel that, man. I think in my heart, I still can lift any heavy thing I want to and do all the things that 20-year-old me could do, and I just turned 53 last month.
Just to put a little more mustard on this part of the conversation. So we go-karting for Josh's birthday.
yeah.
And I am so bad. I become 17. I want to kick David Greenway's tail.
Mm-hmm.
He weighs 100 pounds less than me.
Yeah.
But then you passed me one time.
I did.
You didn't pass me. They told me to move over. I'm like, what in the world? It was
because you wouldn't get out of my way. Yeah.
Anyway, it was a blast.
It was a blast, but sometimes it matters the cart you have too. There's always that cart that's a little slower, a little faster.
Okay, but my point is still, there's that young part of you,
right,
that we talk about in the masculine journey that just is summoned. Yeah. Okay, here's some competition.
Right.
Here's some, let's see, let's go.
Right.
Let's do this.
Right. Yeah. And young members of our audience, that really never goes away.
No.
It doesn't matter how old you are.
That's what this image and picture.
Right.
And I thought, man, so if I'd have seen that in my 40s, I'd have gone, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Now, on the brink of 60, I'm like, gosh, man, that's true.
Yeah.
That's really true.
Feels a little different.
So, anyway, Happy New Year.
Yeah.
The visor man is here. And
shout out to Rob Jones, Joan Fish.
Yeah, I see that. Giving him a little swag.
That's right.
Declaration. That's awesome. So, in this podcast, Happy New Year, friends and allies, and we're going to talk about something that we've had some experience with over the last several years. Do you remember when we were introduced to, and here's the podcast, right? The word of the year. Like you said earlier, January is just an incredibly flavorful time of reflection.
Right.
For whatever reason, January is when gym memberships go up.
Mm-hmm.
January is when new things
Mm-hmm.
or the recommitment to
Mm-hmm.
old things
Mm-hmm.
tend to just dominate the landscape.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so, same thing with exploring the kingdom, exploring your journey, reflecting on the past year.
Mm-hmm.
This idea of a word of the year, word for the year, is very much about, God, where are we going?
Mm-hmm. What do you have for me?
What do you have for me? What am I?
Mhm.
What am I stepping into?
What are we exploring next?
Yeah.
Right. What's the next hill we're going to take?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about the word of the year, and probably a couple sessions on this, because very excited that we got to publish again on YouVersion, the Bible app, a devotional plan
Mhm.
that's called the Word of the Year.
Mhm.
And shout out to Maggie Greenway.
Mm-hmm.
Great job doing this, bringing this together for our editors. I think Robin and Sherry
Mm-hmm.
jumped on that too.
Yep.
And so I would like, SJ, just for us to kind of walk through the YouVersion headlines
Yeah.
each day.
Yeah.
And
Almost give a little preview
and
of
interact with
of
them
it.
on our own.
Yeah.
Our
Sure.
stories, our history with some of this stuff. And the significance of a process that can be, it's not the only way, but a way to kind of move with God, take inventory, and see if this word of the year comes to you,
Right.
if it is presented to you. So, yeah, it's not something you bear down on or strain on, and if you don't get it by January 5th, your year's shot. Or this is just an invitation to walk with God.
Yeah.
And to explore with Him, to what we said before the break. What do you have for me?
Mm-hmm.
Where are we going? And we feel like there are some places you can go that can provide some clues and hints,
Mm-hmm.
that flavor to what that word might be.
Mm-hmm.
Is that fair?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I love the encouragement that, January 1st is the first day of the new year, so there can be some pressure associated with, okay, the year is starting. Well, it's January 7th, 17th, 27th.
Yeah.
It's 365 days later is a year. So it's okay if it takes you a little bit to process this through and really think about it, pray about it. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm getting, even my heart and head, I'm getting ahead of ourselves. There's just words that are kind of coming to me from past experiences, and they are such important words that they kind of entered into the landscape of, we've got T-shirts on things like this. We've got in the history of Zoweh, there's these words can be that significant.
Sure.
They mark they mark a season, or they mark a part of the journey, and you walking with God and God walking with you. So so the first in the YouVersion plan, the first day is reflecting on the past.
Right.
So always a good idea. Where have you been?
Mm-hmm.
Where are you now? And then, God, where are we going? So when you reflect on the past, this past year, and maybe you bring up your word of the year from the past, because it's been the same one for a few years.
I've had a couple of them. Yeah.
So but when you reflect on the past, where do you go?
Well, one of the things I love about this this plan that we put together is that in it, it talks about one of the exercises. Take all the months, January, February, and try to write down something significant that happened in that month.
Yeah.
Whether it be something in your interaction with God directly.
Yeah.
Like He brought something to me during a prayer time, or there was a job change that He walked me through, or maybe something painful, the loss of a loved one, something like that. So it's important to remember what we've been walking through and where God has been walking us.
Yeah.
And I really think that's important. That's the point of the first day, is to just reflect on the past year, think about the hard times, the good times, how God's been present through all of them.
Yeah. Two things have been helpful for me there. One, I do keep a journal.
Mm-hmm.
and it's a daily journal. I don't get in it every day. Robin has one. It's like you just can write a phrase. It's a very
Sherry does that too. It's a daily something. It's meant to be a daily, but it's not to write a diary.
Right, which I do more journal entries.
Right.
And prayer, and I write out prayers, and so gosh, I'll try to think of what Robin and Sherry are doing, but it's really I catch Robin. It's before bed. She'll just write that phrase. And it collects. So you have she has that for. I think she's in year 3 or 4.
Wow.
And she can look back
right.
on the phrase that she wrote for November 1st or for January 3rd or whatever day and see what it was. Just enough. Just a title. Maybe a title and a subtitle. So the journaling is really a good way to look back over your journal because that can be personal. And the other one is, dude, if you Google Calendar.
Oh, absolutely. I was just going to say the same thing.
Go back.
Yeah.
And look at where you spent your time, where you invested your time.
Oh, there's that dentist appointment.
Who you met with. Flying here, flying there. The things that get dropped in there can be helpful to that exercise.
No question about it. Yeah. Yeah, when I think about words of the year and remembering, 2016, I had words of the year before, but I kind of just picked them, because... Okay, I guess I'll study faith this year or hope or whatever, and because I think our pastor had talked about it and it was just sort of an exercise to enter into. In 2016, though, we were at a advance weekend, Heart of a Warrior Advance, and it was over the course of my birthday weekend. In December of 16. And so you guys did great. You got me a carrot cake because I love carrot cake.
That.
And
it was freezing.
There was a cigar sticking out of it, which was nice.
We were freezing. It
was freezing cold, yeah. And we're all like around the fire outside. But you asked me, you said, what has God been up to and what do you see him moving you towards in the coming year? And so I got to share a little bit about 2016, but the word of the year for me that year, and I'm not sure I even shared it that way and said, my word of the year is, but the word that God was bringing to me was vulnerability. And so that, I would say, was really the first time that God brought a word to me that way, rather than me going and finding something I wanted to investigate or circumstances leading me to a place where I would choose a word. And I've been on a journey of working on vulnerability and the importance of that and the strength associated with it and undoing some vows and agreements associated with that idea that I lived under for a long, long time since 2016.
Yeah.
So I tell people it's my word of the year in perpetuity. So I just think it's a good idea. God brought it to me. I want to continue to focus on it and explore it. So, the word of the year doesn't have to be a year. You don't have to move on to the next one.
There's the rules.
No rules.
Yeah, kind of a code, guidelines.
Yeah, they're really more like guidelines.
So, so I look back last year and the word of the year or the theme that God really put on my heart was kindness.
Right, I remember that. Yeah,
and it was something that happened to me the end of last year, and so it was kind of a theme that I was so made to see this idea of kindness. Was writing King Me. It just became something that, like I said, was a find in late 2022, and it was an easy carryover.
I'll just interject as your friend and say it struck a chord, like a tuning fork.
Yeah, and then there's the practice in it, the practice with it, the practice of it. So kindness We did the boy, the mole,
Yeah. The fox and the horse, yeah.
And talking about strength and kindness. What is a good king?
Mm-hmm.
What's some ways that you might describe him strong and kind?
Mm-hmm.
And so so that's just, again, some ways in which we've seen some of these words come to us.
Yeah.
Some of these themes and invitations to walk with God in certain spaces. I mean, vulnerability's, it's not a contrasting word to kindness, but it's a different space to pay attention.
Yeah, and I would say too, what I find interesting as we're discussing this is, we often think, I have anyway, of the word of the year as a word to investigate. Let's get definitions. Let's find it in the Bible. Let's, see what God has to say about that. What are the synonyms? What are the antonyms? Break out your thesaurus. But the practice of whatever that word might be, the practice of being vulnerable, the practice of being kind is very different than the exploration of the word itself.
Yeah.
And I think, just landing on me, I think that this is what God is hopeful for in this exercise.
Yeah.
And that it would be an investigation that leads to maybe a change in how you operate, or an expansion of how you operate, right?
Yeah.
And
vulnerability for you wasn't in those a few years ago. I know some other words are more another word's more current, particularly, but that was one of those, like, do I know how to spell vulnerable? I don't mean vulnerable. So there was an invitation.
Not interested, God, is what I said.
Not interested. So when I was feeling my way through kindness, I didn't sense God was saying I was necessarily unkind. Versus you're not vulnerable.
I
I'm going to teach you vulnerability,
right?
Or I want you to. It's not like that. But there was something about kindness that he did. He was creating a desire in me through what I was literally feeling and observing. Like I can't describe it other than a word that it just felt like it was in a bigger font and italics and bold. And why is that word on fire?
Why am I seeing it on signs everywhere?
That's right.
Yeah.
So then comes, Charlie Mackesy and the boy and the mole. And here comes, some things that I'm looking at in King Me as I write. And wildly, at the end of some of this exploration and word of the year for me was the surprise of, Michael, there is a level of unkindness, and who you are often unkind to is you. And that was kind of the treasure of moving with God in this space of kindness. So
that's good.
So day 2, let me jump to day 2 because it's the longing and stillness that I've just described.
Right.
Got ahead of myself, but just described quite a bit of. So how would you use that vulnerability, or if you want to say the G word, how would you describe the longing and stillness?
Well, I think my lack of vulnerability and the walls I had built around my heart really initially prevented me from being open to the idea that was the word God wanted me to explore.
Yeah.
But some of the work I had done leading up to 2016 just equipped me, enabled me, and encouraged me to, okay, I really don't want to do this. But, there's lots of things I don't want to do that I know I should. I did the ice plunge this morning. It was 28 degrees at my house this morning, so I didn't really want to do it.
So the ice was warmer. The ice was warmer
than the air
on your porch.
Yes, exactly.
Nice.
Exactly.
I'm gonna go warm up, hon.
I got out and it just froze on the deck immediately. But
That's fun.
So there's things that, we really don't want to necessarily engage in, but we just cognitively learn, okay, I'm going to enter into this as a discipline. Well, when I did that, God just started to reveal how closed off my heart has been, or had been. And how lonely that is, how isolating that is. There's that C.S. Lewis quote where you can lock your heart away in a casket.
Yeah.
And in the cold and dark,
heard that in Advent. About being open to love, open to love.
Right.
About those.
And part of my story is being wounded by the people that love me. It's part of everybody's story. Yeah. But we react to that differently. And so my reaction to that was close them off. So he's been breaking down those walls, and I'm still under deconstruction in that regard. So the longing and the stillness, I think I was not even aware of what he was up to, probably until after the encounter weekend the following spring, 2017, and he was starting to get in there, and I was doing this word study, and so the wonderful thing about God is he will pursue us and meet us in the places of our deepest longing, that we know about. Yeah, and then it'll also lead us to places.
Unlock some of those things.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I remember you found Brene Brown.
Oh yeah.
Brene Brown found you, and here's an expert in vulnerability.
Oh yeah.
And here's somebody speaking about it in a way that no, it's not weakness.
Right.
It's actually strength.
Right.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
So
changes
lots of treasure. And lots of provision on the path of kind of walking in these themes, which we call Word of the Year. So I love what we wrote here. As you ponder, longings in the stillness, right? And the stillness is a key. It's that prepositional phrase that says you're pulling away, you're by quiet waters, you're finding porches, you're sitting. In this, and
stillness,
most
rest,
of our longings
quiet.
get just swept into the busyness,
right? Hijacked,
and you're not sure what you want. I mean, we say longing, we're talking about desires, want, hope. So to sit in that in stillness, what is it that I want? What is I'm hopeful for? What would I like my life to be, or my world to be, or God, what do you want for me? That's just all in the stillness. So Here's what was written in the day 2 at the end. As you ponder all this with God today, consider asking him, Father, what desires have you sown deep in my heart? What makes me really come alive? Jesus, would you highlight some of my hopes and dreams for this coming year? Great question.
Yeah.
And Spirit, what deep longings have long been dormant in my story? Where have I shut down longings or dreams? I mean,
what an invitation.
Yeah. That requires a quiet place. Even when I read it again, I'm like, can we just have a timeout for 5 minutes?
Everybody press pause.
Yes, 5 minutes, and let me think about that.
Oh my gosh.
What do I think about that? How do I feel about that? And just to enter into one of those 3 questions. So the dare, listeners, is one of those 3 questions for 5 minutes. And can you set a timer? What does 5 minutes even feel like? We just lose track of the importance of reflection and right here, reflection not on the past year, that's day 1. Day 2 is reflection on your inner world. What do I feel? What do I think? What am I hopeful for? What do I long for? It's a great place to go in, bring some research to, and bring that back to this thing we call what the Word of the Year might be from the Lord for me.
Right. I can't not think of, when we're talking about getting still, A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, the movie about Fred Rogers. Yeah. And he and Lloyd are in the diner or a Chinese restaurant, I can't remember what it is, and he says, let's just take a minute and think about all the people who have loved us into being.
That's right.
And it happens in the movie, and it's exactly 1 minute. I timed it in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just complete silence. And what's great is in the scene, you should go look it up on YouTube, listeners. But what's great about it in the scene is everybody starts to realize what's happening, and everything goes quiet.
Mm-hmm.
And there's an invitation in that
Yeah.
for us to engage in that moment
Yeah.
as well.
It's awesome.
But that minute of silence, that minute of stillness is so powerful. So what would it look like if you had 10 minutes of stillness?
Mm-hmm.
It's a great thing about the cold plunge, just to plug it if anybody's thinking about doing it. You're in there for 3 minutes, and I swear to you, all you can think about doing is breathing.
Yeah.
There's nothing else on your mind than trying to control, not go into hyperventilation. You know what I mean? I mean, it's a still moment. And I have mine out on my back deck, so I can look into the woods, and it's a great moment. But this stillness thing is, we could do a whole other podcast, as we often say, about stillness. It's so important.
Yeah. So day 3 is now you're starting to kind of sort what you've done in day 1, what's happened in the past,
Mm-hmm.
what do I long for, what am I hopeful for. Now you start to kind of what themes are coming to the surface,
Right,
you know,
right.
how
Rising to the top.
yeah. So what are some themes that you can enter into God, this conversation, this exploration with God? What are some of the themes that are coming up? So
Yeah, I would say, with vulnerability, I kind of got blindsided. In the end of 2021, though, December, again, I don't go looking for them as our plan suggests you should, typically. They usually will just come to me. But I love the process here because, some people are process people, and that's great. And I should engage in the process too. But this word grief came to me in December of 2021. And I was like, what is this about? Well, the theme of my life through my exploration of vulnerability was that things would happen to me that I felt like I couldn't share, or there wasn't a person safe enough to share them with, or I'd experienced these things that were, that would have a negative impact. And what God was starting to show me was that I had never really dealt with them. I had never really processed them. I had never really brought them. I just kind of move on from them. And moving on was kind of the theme for me. And then God brings this word grief. And I'm immediately struck with, again, like, okay, vulnerability, I wasn't all that into that, but I see where you're going. I've done a lot of work in 5 years, you and I together, God. Grief is not something I'm really all that interested in talking about either. But I can see now in my story how I haven't grieved anything, ever. And so when you talk about the theme of my life was, we don't have time for that. We got to move on. We got stuff to do.
Yeah.
So grief, then I enter into that in 2021. Well, the first 6 months of 2022, 6 people close to me died, including my mom. And then I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I guess that's what this is about.
Yeah. Preparation to some degree.
Some training and and it wasn't like, I'm going to give you this word of the year and then I'm going to give you something to grieve about. God doesn't have that kind of attitude. But
it's still how it played is how it played. And,
right.
It's interesting. I didn't think of it till you were talking, but vulnerability is kind of a gateway theme,
absolutely,
if you will, to grieving.
Yeah.
To feeling. To the walls that are built up, right? That we all do. We build certain walls to protect ourselves. Become the walls that enclose ourselves. That keep us, in some level of confinement. And so, to be able to, I mean, part of it, you should have a waist-high wall there. That's not a bad thing.
Boundaries are not a bad
You know,
thing.
to protect.
But crypts are
You could,
another thing.
but yes, when it's a 12-foot wall,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, and it's reinforced and all
think
that.
I think that's what we're making a case for. So
Yeah, well, let me just say one more thing about it because this just landed on me. We were talking about the algebra of healing a couple episodes ago.
Mhm.
And I think the algebra of this thing, the word of the year for me has been, there is no love without vulnerability.
mhm. Yeah,
And without love, there is nothing to grieve. Right? So the connection for all of those together it's entering into and being
Yeah.
willing to investigate this word of the year thing, man. It's
yeah,
been very important in my journey.
yeah.
So
I hope that's part of the opening, of this, what you just said.
Mhm.
Maybe that should be the opening, the teaser that we have to come in. And so we're going to get to part 2 and release that next week. And we can hit the other 4 days, 4, 5,
Yeah.
6, and 7. But I want to wrap up with one of the things that I believe. What is this for?
Mhm.
You know, and again, having a word or discovering it or having it come to you. This is not an assignment to turn in. This is an invitation to walk with God.
Right.
And when we are invited to walk with God, we believe, we've said it this way, there is healing and training, and there is validation and initiation. So that right there is a pretty broad spectrum of lanes in which the word matters, as we've talked about a little. It does. The word matters, but it matters in the context of walking with God, intimately walking with God. And so this is a great invitation to what we would say is orientation.
Mm-hmm.
Because an oriented man or an oriented woman is a man or woman who is experiencing who they are in the kingdom, where they are in the kingdom, how the kingdom works, and that God's up to good in their lives. And so the word of the year just kind of falls into the framework of all of that.
Oh, absolutely.
That's what it's for,
Yeah.
is to enter into walking with God. And so if this is your first time even attempting a word of the year,
Yeah.
let me just say, first times, Caleb, do not often go that well. You're not sure if you're doing it right.
Right.
You're not sure if it is right.
Mm-hmm.
You're not. And so the enemy loves when we try to step into new things
Mm-hmm.
in a new year,
Mm-hmm.
and even a theme or themes or
Yeah, he's cunning.
frustrate you
Mhm.
when you try to look back on the year.
Yeah.
I don't have a Google Calendar and I didn't journal. I mean,
Right.
So I just want to relieve the pressure, as you said earlier, and say, hey, maybe that's what you are going to be offered, is an invitation to see how you don't dislike the word of the year. You dislike not knowing what to do,
Yeah,
or you
exactly.
dislike not
Right.
doing it, well enough. So I think it's really interesting to see what an invitation like this. What does that do to you? What's it do with you?
Mm-hmm.
What's it do for you?
Mm-hmm.
And pay attention to all of that,
Mm-hmm.
because that too could be a part of the treasure and a part of the gold that God is moving in these places. What's the Proverbs 25 verse? It's the glory of God to conceal a matter,
Mm-hmm. Glory of Kings
to seek it out. So ask, seek, knock. This is just an invitation to walk with God intimately. So we'll pick up on day 4 in the next part 2 of Word of the Year.
Yeah, if you're not familiar with the Bible app, just search for YouVersion or the Bible app on the Apple Store or Android, for those of you that are still using Android phones. And sorry,
Google phones.
get that subtle dig in there. But really look up the Bible app. And when you do, at the bottom of the screen, you'll see a search button. Click on search for Zoweh, and you'll find all the plans that we offer on there. I think this is our 13th plan, maybe our 12th.
Yep.
But
it'll be on it'll be on some other platforms too.
Yeah,
on our
no doubt.
website, and you can go to Zoweh.org and go to the free stuff. It'll be there. So love to have you engage with us. You know the deal. Like, review, share,
subscribe,
and Happy New Year. Welcome to 2024. And it's our prayer that God begins to move as you begin to seek. What is the good? What's the good that He's up to in your life, and where is He taking you? And that you would explore more with Him.
We hope you have enjoyed this episode of Exploring More. The landing page for this podcast is zoweh.org/podcast. That's ZOWEH.org/podcast, where you can find the show notes and various platforms to which we broadcast. You can also find us and the Life of More by visiting Zoweh on YouVersion Bible app, Right Now Media, our Facebook page, and Zoweh on Instagram and Twitter. Remember, with God there is always more, and you were made for more.